Hello and welcome to today's live chat. And as you can see, I'm actually in the office right now. And so I hope that nobody sort of turns up and then have to deal with them whilst being live. Now, normally on a Friday at this time, I put up a video which is historical. I don't do a live chat at this time, but I thought that in view of the current situation in UK politics, it would be far more sensible to actually put up something in which I explained the situation, particularly what is happening at the moment. In fact, it seems a bit to me to be a bit ridiculous to start talking. I prepared a video relating to communist terror in the 70s and 80s, and to talk about that, which happened 40 years ago, when I could be actually talking about something which happened yesterday, but to see it in the way I see it. So I think this is something which is due to the divisions within the Conservative Party, and I think those divisions go back a very long way. So in 1906, there was a general election. In that general election, the Conservative Party experienced its worst defeat ever. That is its worst defeat ever until the next general election. But as things stand today, it's its worst defeat, even worse than defeat in 1997. So that was the second worst defeat in the 20th century. And this brought to power the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party of the Liberal government of 1906 1914 was, in my opinion, the most radical social changing government that ever happened in the United Kingdom. I'd say far more so than the 1945 to 51 Labour government, because in 1906 this was completely new what they were doing. For example, what happened in 1945, that was more or less expected. As it came about. Now, in 1906 to 14, they introduced things such as social welfare, they introduced unemployment benefits, sick care. Another thing they introduced was trade union reform, such give trade unions immunities. In 1903, I think it was, there was a railway strike in South Wales, and so once the strike was over, the railway owners sued the trade unions for their losses. They won in court, and if that was the case, then there's not much point in having a trade union if you're going to get sued for the losses. So I mean, every single trade union would be bankrupt, and that would be the end of trade unions. So that the immunity was given to trade unions, that they couldn't be then sued for losses caused by strikes. Now, the Liberal government continued, obviously, for some time. Now, in 1914, there was the First World War. And in January, hello, Colin. And in January of 1916, the Lloyd George became Prime Minister. Now, what happened during the First World War? There was a coalition, but half the Liberal Party didn't like it, and half the Conservative Party didn't like it. So that both the Liberal parties and the Conservative parties were split. This coalition continued after the end of the First World War. In fact, it continued until the 19th of October 1922, when a large group, nearly 300 Conservative members of Parliament went to a place called the Carlton Club, which is a club in Pall Mall for a dining club, and there they voted to end the coalition with the Liberal Party. They obviously felt they could win in a general election, and that is what they forced, and that's what happened. On the 15th of November 1922, the Conservative Party became the ruling party for the first time since 1906. It was led by somebody called Bonar Law. He's not very well known. In fact, most people, I think, never heard of him. He was the shortest running Conservative Prime Minister, because Bonar actually died. He didn't die in office, but he died shortly after. He died about a year after becoming, well, not quite a year, in fact, becoming Prime Minister. He resigned Hello, Box. Sorry, he was from Canada, so I say hello from Canada. Got the message. Bonar Law was Canadian. I think he's the only British Prime Minister ever who was born in another country. Disraeli was born in the United Kingdom, if I remember right, but his father was born in a ghetto in the Papal States. So, but anyway, I can't think of any other. Anyway, never mind about that. Who was born elsewhere? So Boris Johnson and Winston Churchill had American US background. Anyway, so Bonar Law became, he had to resign, and in his place became Stanley Baldwin. Now, Stanley Baldwin, now the Conservative Party had quite a large majority, something like 45 seats, and 344 seats, if I remember right, in a 615 chamber of parliament or something like that. And Stanley Baldwin became Prime Minister in his place. Now, Stanley Baldwin had been the Chancellor of the Exchequer, so he took over sort of automatically. It's a bit like what's now happened in Britain. The Prime Minister's gone, so he's going to have to be replaced by someone. Now there are different rules as to how it's done. But Stanley Baldwin, unlike the current government, he had his idea was he wanted to do major tariff reform, so that there's this argument within the Conservative Party about whether there should be protectionism, that's state within the empire. The empire should be free trade within the empire, which is a bit like the European Union. So it should be free trade, but that should be protected, or alternatively, it should be free trade with the entire world, giving no protection to the empire. So there's two different groups. Now, Stanley Baldwin wanted to actually do something to change this, which was quite radical. And so he felt as though he didn't have a popular mandate, so therefore he had to call a general election. And his idea was therefore to do that. He did that, and the thing was, whereas the Conservative Party got the most seats, the Liberal and Labour parties outnumbered the Conservative Party. A Liberal and Labour coalition was formed that led to the first Labour coalition into the government. It didn't last very long; it only lasted a few months, but it was the first time that the Labour Party was in power. But the point here is that the Prime Minister, Stanley Baldwin, was sufficiently honest to say that nobody voted for him, so as Prime Minister, so therefore there was going to be a general election. So there's a very clear message in there for those who are interested. Of course, in the past, that's the only time I can think of where that's ever happened. When James Callaghan became Prime Minister in 1977, it was chosen by the Labour Party, and there have now been several times within the Conservative Party. John Major was chosen, and in the last three of them weren't chosen by a popular demand. They became by votes within the Conservative Party. Now, the point of this is what I wanted to go into. So, for example, we have the 1922 committee, which I mentioned earlier, which was a grouping of backbench members of the Conservative Party. Now, the backbench members of the Conservative Party had stopped the coalition. So this was the first thing, the Carlton Club meeting of the 19th of October 1922, and the 1922 committee refers to the intake of Conservative MPs, which happened on the 15th of November 1922. So there's the new Conservative MPs that came in, and then this formed the 1922 committee. Thus, was initially a drinking club or a dining club at Pall Mall, but by 1926, all backbench Conservative MPs could actually become a member of it. And whereas, so they could all become a member. Today, there's 18 people on the committee itself, and it's voted by all MPs. So in this way, the Conservative Party has a very clear lobby group of people who are members of Parliament, but not within the government. You can't be a member you cannot vote in the 1922 committee if you're the Prime Minister or the Minister of something else. You can only do that if you are on the backbenches. Now, what this has done, as far as future politics is concerned, it means to say that people from the rear, who are not very well known, are the people who decide who the government is. For example, yesterday it would seem that Sir Graham Brady, who is the chairperson of the 1922 committee, he went round to see Liz Truss, and he had to tell her that she had to resign, and that was it. Now, this has happened in the past. It happened with Ian Duncan Smith in 2003, although they were then in opposition, where the 1922 committee went and the chair went out to see the leader of the Conservative Party and told him his time was up. Also, the 1922 committee did try to get rid of two previous prime ministers, one being Boris Johnson, but there wasn't enough votes in favour of actually getting rid of him. Now, the current situation that we have in British politics, hello inner city, the current situation is, I think, entirely due to the situation with Brexit. Now, Brexit is this idea that it's like the argument of free trade empire within the empire or with everybody. These people supporting Brexit seem to think that they can have free trade with everybody, although it doesn't make much sense if you're not actually, you've got nothing really to trade with. And this has completely disrupted the Conservative Party, which once was the party of business, to now being the party which is anti-business, and in my opinion. So in the part where it's come something, I think, something similar to the sloganism, which we associate normally with the more the extreme left, communism, to where trying chasing an idea which is completely impossible and makes no sense in the 21st century. And this, though, as I've just said, actually goes back all this way. It's nothing unusual, and this, in fact, is now tearing the Conservative Party apart, which is one of the other. Collins asked, didn't the 1922 committee also come about due to the reorganisation due to Irish independence? Yes, there's a lot of truth in that. So when Ireland had Ireland became independent, sorry, most of them, not the Republic of Ireland became independent in 1922, and so this obviously made an effect on the amount of MPs. And the thing was this, though, that the Sinn Féin MPs, and they were almost all of Ireland had actually voted, except for what bits of which are now the North, had voted for Sinn Féin, but they wouldn't actually. The Irish MPs effectively didn't actually vote in British elections. One of the very important things, though, which brought about electoral reform in the United Kingdom is the 1911 budget, because what happened was the Liberal Party wanted to do reforms for social care and all the rest of it, so they had a rather a budget which wasn't trying to raise more cash. And the thing was that House of Commons passed it, but the House of Lords threw it out. And at this moment, the House of Commons then started trying home rule bill has come up and thrown it out, largely because the Lords were the absentee landlords, which the people in Ireland were largely protesting against. They certainly didn't want Ireland becoming independent. So but they were able to put a parliamentary block on any independence for Ireland, and or even home rule, not even independence, but home rules are sort of what Scotland and Wales has to a large extent now. If something like that had come through in 1892, or when Gladstone proposed it, then it might have ended up with Ireland becoming independent. Ireland could. And that, I fear, what is likely to happen now is that Scotland will become, the United Kingdom will break up precisely because of English nationalism, and that's what I feel. But I think that's now a natural thing which won't actually be stopped. So anyway, so ask Colin's question, yes, because the Conservative members of Parliament felt as though that they then had a bigger hold over the coalition. They didn't have the fair place in the coalition. Not only that, there were more Conservatives in the coalition than there were Liberal members of Parliament. So that is, I think, that the backbenchers within Conservative Party thought that they actually had more power. Not only that, whereas the Conservative Party was split as was the Liberal. It was like the Conservative Party actually came together after the 1922, November 15th, November 1922 election, which the Liberal Party didn't. And Lloyd George sort of stayed around for much longer. What we have now has been constant instability in the UK political system since the vote in June 2016 about Brexit. And this is likely to continue. I just can't see this ending at all. It's now got to the stage where the person who brought the podium out and into outside of 10 Downing Street. I don't know why he doesn't just leave it there, because the next Prime Minister is going to be needing it in a few days' time. Anyway, I suspect that whoever comes in next won't last very long. And I'm even frightened to hear that now Boris Johnson is thinking of a comeback. Let's not forget where he was even just 2 months ago. And this is totally absurd, to get rid of somebody for all the things he did, which he shouldn't have done, and then to let him come back again because the person in the meantime seemed even worse. Liz Truss, of course, could have actually stayed longer if she had had some economic sense. Unfortunately, she didn't. She came up with something totally absurd to present a budget at times like this, which is never in economic theory, which has never happened before. Borrowing money to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. It's just totally absurd, and it's not surprised that the markets reacted in the way they did. Anyway, so I believe that this goes back a lot further than so that was my thoughts on the matter. I do see this as being an integral part of the Conservative Party. But let's not also forget that the Labour Party, 40 years ago, it had these two strands within it. You had the sort of the more progressive, liberal-minded Labour Party, and you had this far left tendency, which was eliminated largely towards the end of the 80s by Neil Kinnock, and certainly by the time Tony Blair came to power. There was a forward-looking, progressive, united party which had a clear clear ideas, which by then the Conservative Party had split up because of fights over Europe. Same way as in 1979, when Margaret Thatcher came to power, it was the other way around. It was the Conservative Party which had clear ideas on what it wanted to do, even though they were extremely radical for the time. And it was the Labour Party which was fighting amongst itself. So it's utterly clear. There's never, I think, been a lead in the opinion polls like there is now. 33 points ahead, I think it was this morning, for the Labour Party over the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party will be complete. I believe in electoral reform. I didn't believe in it for a very long time, but I think we had the referendum, which totally failed, about 12 years ago, where you have the transferable vote, where you've got your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice, or whatever. And I think that makes far more sense. Then again, people have to. Anyway, Colin writes, John Smith was the best leader Labour never had due to his untimely death. That can never be proven, of course, and it's all conjecture. Don't know, actually. I honestly think, with hindsight, I never voted for him. I think Tony Blair was a good leader. If he hadn't got himself in this Iraqi, mess, then I really think he would have gone down that way. And I didn't vote for him. Now I regret not voting for him. But I think that's my opinion. I think But I really like Labour's leader. Keir Starmer is somebody he's got his intellectual ability, and he argues very well. One thing I really felt with Liz Truss was when there was things put forward to her. For example, Keir Starmer in Parliament, he made this joke about "It's all over by Christmas." Is that the name of a book, or I've forgotten the joke now? Damn, I've forgotten it. Anyway, but she reacted with a huge amount of spite when she could have just. I remember John Major, sorry, when John Major, something similar was said to him in Parliament, and he got up and he said, "I thank the gentleman for his really good idea, but that is not, but inflation will fall down." And that was when somebody from the left of the Labour Party made some absurd, or it was a joke, it was reasonably funny, about linking inflation to the Chelsea football team. And so John Major knew how to handle this situation, whereas Liz Truss was absolutely, she showed that she just couldn't cope, and she couldn't take a joke or even turn the joke on her. And this, I think, showed that she really shouldn't have been there, really, in my opinion. Anyway, so. Thanks very much for listening. I think that was a one-off one. I've got a video on the 1922 committee, which I did it 2 days ago. This was before she resigned, and the film I was going to have up tonight on communism and the way that communism wants to force people to emigrate as part of the communist playbook, which we now see being put in trying to force people to leave. I'll do that, and I'll put that one up during the week sometime. Today I was writing about the Łódź ghetto, and so I will have something on that as well up in the next few days, or probably November sometime. Once I've written it, but I've got to stick the pictures in and the video and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's Colin writes, Blair was definitely tarnished by his involvement in Iraq. I have no problems with the majority of his time as Prime Minister, apart from multiculturalism. Okay, well, whatever. Okay, yeah, I do. If only the Iraq thing hadn't have happened, but I do understand. I also believe that getting rid of Saddam Hussein was the idea was good. I think just the way it was carried out wasn't so good. Good. Right. So thanks for watching, and all the best from me. I've just had somebody walk into the reception where I'm currently working, and so that he's taking over from me, and so I'll now brave the rain and go back home, which in my case is a motorhome. Thanks for being here, and all the best from me in Poland.